Find somewhere comfortable. Let your body settle into whatever is holding you right now. You don't need to follow any of this closely. You don't need to remember a word of it. Just let the sounds arrive, gentle and unhurried, and drift away again just as easily. There is nothing to understand tonight. Nothing to figure out. We're going somewhere slow and quiet. Somewhere that has existed, patient and still, long before any of us arrived, and will continue long after. A place where darkness is not empty but full. Where silence is not absence but depth. The ocean is very old. Most of it we have never seen. Most of it exists in a kind of permanent night, far below the reach of sunlight, at pressures the human body could not survive. And yet life is there. Quietly, in the dark, life continues. Let that thought settle softly as we begin. You don't need to hold on to it. Just let it pass through you, the way deep water moves, slowly, and with great patience. We are in no hurry tonight. There is something that falls through the ocean. It has been falling for as long as there has been an ocean, which is to say it has been falling for a very long time. It falls slowly. Everything about it is slow. It begins at the surface, where sunlight still touches the water and small things live in great numbers, tiny organisms, the smallest imaginable creatures, drifting near the warmth of the upper world. When these creatures reach the end of their brief lives, they begin to sink. Gently. Downward. Carried by nothing more than the soft pull of gravity through water. Along the way, other things join them. Fragments of algae. Fine particles of sediment. The discarded outer shells of creatures so small they have no common names. The faint biological debris of an entire living world, releasing itself, letting go, drifting down toward the quiet below. Scientists, when they first observed this phenomenon, called it marine snow. The name is a good one. Watch it filmed in the beam of a deep-sea submersible and it does look like snow, pale flecks drifting past in slow motion, caught in the light for a moment before dissolving back into the dark. Not falling urgently, the way rain falls. Falling the way snow falls in still air. Patient. Unhurried. Soft. It can take weeks. A single particle of marine snow may drift downward for 2 weeks before it reaches the seafloor. Moving perhaps a centimeter each minute, sometimes slower, turning gently as it descends through water that gradually becomes colder and darker and more still. The surface of the ocean, with all its noise and brightness and movement, becomes a distant memory somewhere far above. And still the particle drifts. Still it descends. Breathe. What is remarkable about marine snow, what carries a kind of quiet wonder, is that it is not merely debris. It is not simply waste drifting to the bottom of a vast container. It is something closer to a delivery. A slow, ancient, patient transfer of energy from one world to another. The creatures that live in the deep ocean, in the permanent dark below 200 meters, cannot photosynthesize. There is no light for them to use. They cannot grow their own food from sunlight the way plants do. And yet they live. They have always lived. And what sustains them, in large part, is this gentle, endless falling of material from above. The deep ocean floor receives this nourishment the way a patient sleeper receives a dream, without effort, without reaching, simply by being still and allowing what arrives to arrive. Organisms on the seafloor, sea cucumbers moving slowly across the sediment, brittle stars extending their delicate arms, ancient creatures that have changed very little across enormous spans of time. These beings filter the water, scavenge what lands near them, and sustain themselves on what the surface world quietly releases. There is something deeply peaceful in that image, if you let it arrive slowly. A world sustained not by urgency or effort, but by the patient accumulation of what drifts gently downward through the dark. You may have drifted. That's fine. The Mariana Trench sits in the western Pacific Ocean. It is the deepest place on Earth that we know of. At its lowest point, called the Challenger Deep, the seafloor is nearly 11 kilometers below the surface. To give that some sense of scale, if you place the tallest mountain on land into the Mariana Trench, its peak would still be more than 2 kilometers beneath the waves. All of that mountain, completely submerged, and still with 2 kilometers of water above it. In 1960, a vessel called the Trieste descended to that depth. It carried 2 people. The journey downward took nearly 5 hours. At the bottom, in total darkness, under a pressure roughly 1,000 times greater than the pressure we experience at the surface, they spent 20 minutes. They reported seeing a flatfish resting calmly on the sediment below them. 20 minutes at the deepest point of the ocean. And even there, something was living. Marine snow reaches the Mariana Trench. It reaches everywhere. Scientists studying sediment samples from that extraordinary depth have found it there, the fine organic material, the remnants of surface life, having made its long and gentle descent all the way to the bottom of the world. It arrives there diminished, much of it consumed on the journey by creatures at intermediate depths, but some of it completes the entire passage. Weeks of slow falling, and it arrives. Just the sound of the words now. Let them drift past. The deep ocean has a temperature that stays very close to freezing. Not because of ice, the pressure prevents water from freezing at those depths, but because warmth from the surface never reaches it. The sun warms the upper ocean, and currents carry some of that warmth to middling depths, but the deep is largely untouched by the sun's influence. It has remained cold and dark and quiet across millions of years, largely unchanged, while the surface world above it has shifted enormously. Ice ages have come and gone. Continents have moved. Species have risen and vanished. And the deep ocean has continued, patient and still, receiving its slow, gentle snowfall from above. There is something restful in that constancy. The idea of a place that remains, that does not rush, that exists in a kind of permanent soft stillness. The creatures that live there reflect that stillness. Many deep-sea organisms grow and move and reproduce at rates far slower than their surface cousins. Some species of deep-sea coral are thought to be among the oldest living organisms on Earth, individual colonies reaching ages measured in thousands of years, growing a few millimeters each century, anchored quietly in the cold dark. There is no urgency in their existence. They simply continue. There is no rush. Marine snow is not uniform. What falls through the ocean changes with the seasons, changes with the health of the surface ecosystem, changes with the warmth of the water and the abundance of microscopic life near the top. In productive seasons, when the upper ocean blooms with life, more snow falls. The deep receives more. In quieter times, less arrives, and the deep receives less, and the organisms that live there slow further, conserve what they have, and wait. The waiting is not anxious. That is worth saying gently. The waiting of deep-sea creatures is not the waiting of something in distress. It is the waiting of something that has always been this way, that has no memory of anything different, that exists in complete accordance with its world. A sea cucumber at 4 kilometers depth is not suffering the absence of sunlight. It has never known sunlight. It lives in its own world, complete and sufficient, cold and quiet and deep. And through that world, always, the marine snow falls. Slowly through the dark. Tiny pale flecks, caught for a moment in any light that finds them, then vanishing again into the surrounding stillness. Some of it consumed before it travels far. Some of it settling on narrow ledges and seamounts partway down, gathered by creatures waiting in the dark middle distances of the ocean. And some of it continuing, patient and unhurried, all the way to the bottom. 2 weeks of falling. Through the cold. through the dark, through the silence. And then, gently, it arrives. Let that settle. Somewhere beneath every ocean on this earth, the snow is falling right now. In the Pacific and the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean and the cold waters near the poles. In every deep place, at every depth, tiny fragments of the surface world are drifting slowly downward. They have been doing so, without pause, for hundreds of millions of years. Long before we existed to observe them. Long before there were words for what they were. The ocean holds most of its life in that darkness. Far more of the ocean, by volume, lies in the deep than near the surface. And through all of it, slowly, the snow descends. It is one of those facts that does not demand anything of you. It simply is. Somewhere, it is happening now. The quiet falling. The patient drift. The long, unhurried journey from light to dark, from surface to stillness. You don't need to think about it. You can simply let it be there, the way the deep ocean is always there, below everything, quiet and vast and enduring. Breathe. Let your body settle a little further. Let the weight of the day drift downward, the way everything drifts downward, slowly and without effort, toward something still and deep and restful. And so we leave it there. Somewhere below an ocean you will never visit, the snow is still falling. Patient. Soft. Unhurried. It does not know it is beautiful, and perhaps that is exactly why it is. Somewhere behind you, the day is already distant. Let it stay there. The dark below the ocean is not empty. It is full of slow, quiet life. And somewhere in that same softness, sleep is waiting for you. Drift now, if you're ready. Sleep well.